Welcome to the Today's Leader podcast, the podcast for the leaders and entrepreneurs of today.
Way to go, guys. Way to go. Keep it going. Good job, guys. All right, Paul, I see you. All right, John, finish. Let's go.
Hey there, it's Coach Carl here, and welcome to the Today's Leaders podcast, forging the path of success for the leaders and entrepreneurs for today. Today is an education session. Today is all about understanding some of the pitfalls and the downfalls that first-time leaders face in the roles that they take on. Now, the reality is there's not a manager out there that doesn't have a story to tell, that doesn't have lessons that they've learnt as they've worked through and led through their first few roles as managers or team leaders. Now, I know the leader that I am today is far removed from the leader that I was 5 years ago, let alone 30 years ago when my journey began. The mistakes that I made, the ladder rungs that broke underneath my weight, the human collateral along the way are just some of the messes that taught me to be better, to be a better leader and to find a better way. A better way may have been a long time coming in some cases or a long time being found, but the better way usually came about because of my own personal growth journey. Now, many times I didn't go looking for a better way, and if I didn't go looking for a better way, the better way may not have been found. So in other words, listen to what your mum says. Learn from your mistakes. And that is what good leaders and great leaders do. Now, based on many conversations, my journey would sit around, I guess, about the middle of the pack. Some leaders learnt early and climbed the ladder to success and achieved amazing heights, while others never recovered from mistakes. And many of them returned back to what I would call the cocooned comfort of a lesser role and subsequently settling for a less challenging life. I learnt that being stubborn, doing things the hard way was really challenging. And as I found new ways or better ways dawned, that's when I achieved traction with people and teams. When I achieved traction, that's when I achieved better results. Every result that I had as a leader, I can always acknowledge the team that was there with me at that particular time, the team that was supportive, the team that was complementary in many ways, shapes and forms. It was the teams that generated the success, not me as an individual. And why did it take so long? Many of you may be asking. Now, my first company had mentors and role models, and promotions were based more on technical skills and the ability to invest in a lot of time at work. You worked hard, long hours to get noticed, and that's how you got ahead. That was just the way it was done. Now, I followed my role models, long hours, and got good at what it is that I did. I was never taught leadership in the first company that I worked for. And as such, it was an expectation that I would lead people naturally. I was taught how to counsel and discipline, but not how to inspire and motivate. And when you're expected to be a natural leader, you will inspire some of the team because that's who you're connecting with. And you connect with a mixture of skill set and competence, but with all the positive natural skills that you had also came some really ugly ones. And that's the challenge that many first-time leaders face. So while naturally you connected with some, it was incredibly difficult to connect with all. Now, many first-time leaders are promoted into their first roles based on competence or technical skills. They're good at what they do, but they don't know how to lead and inspire people. On reflection and personal experiences and ongoing conversations with many of my clients, I've enabled a bit of a concept of what are the downfalls that first leaders, first-time leaders or frontline leaders face. Now, firstly, the first downfall is that they rely on title. Now, first-time leaders often believe that people will do what you want simply because you have the title. You may be the boss, but leadership is earned, and I found that out many times the hard way. Positional leadership is the toughest leadership there is, yet many stay here rooted in the belief that the people you manage are poor, when in reality, the answer lies in the mirror. So instead of thinking that the people you lead are poor, the reality is it's potentially the leader in you that's poor. Positional leaders rely on checklists, systems, and processes, and continual follow-up. It's hard work. One thing is clear, that leaders that rely on title work hard. They burn out, and they never maximize the potential of their team. In fact, their results are usually average or below. And seriously, what's the point in that? The second downfall of first-time leaders is the concept that they need to be liked. They need to be liked. And it's part of our basic psychology as human beings. We need to be socially connected. We need to be liked. It's important that you build genuine rapport with your team. And it's nice to be liked, but it's more important to be respected. So don't confuse the need for connection with the need for friendship. Dealing with tough situations are all part of being a manager, and your decisions will be compromised when friends are part of a tough decision that you have to make. Downfall number 3 is don't assume the skill set of your team. While you may have been promoted because of your technical brilliance, don't assume that your team are similar. Assuming your team are effective as effective as you were is a recipe for disaster. Get to know them, get to understand their strengths and their weaknesses, and work alongside them to develop them to get better results. Downfall number 4, and this happens so often. The downfall is do the job yourself. So the polar opposite of what I've just spoken about. Our first attempts to influence may fail, or the team are not skilled enough to achieve the standards of the job you expect as the new manager, so you just give up and do the job yourself. Have you been guilty of that? It's easier if I just do it myself. Now, the resulting mess with an overworked manager, stressed to the max, and a team that may as well be playing cards every afternoon is a disaster. So if ever you hear yourself saying, I may as well do the job myself as a leader, don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. Invest the time in getting your team to do it to the standards that you expect. Downfall number 5, treat everyone the same. I often see managers talk about their ability to treat everyone the same. They wear it like a badge of honor. In fairness, what they're probably meaning to say is that they're consistent and have a fair approach. So in fairness, that's probably what they're attempting to say. They're consistent and they treat people fairly. But treating everyone the same is just another example of what not to do. Everyone is a unique individual and everyone is different when it comes to being, especially when it comes to being motivated and engaged. Using the same approach or treating everyone equally assures that you'll be missing the magic that happens when you truly connect and inspire. So, yes, be fair in your treatment to your team, but having the same approach with everyone is going to minimize your effectiveness as a leader. Number 6, play favorites. This is, again, it's a bit of a polar opposite to what I was just speaking to. Playing favorites is a dangerous pastime. Playing favorites is all about turning a blind eye to your most effective or your most skilled team members when they do something bad. Or it can be about creating a clique in which some are in and some are out. You know, playing favorites because you like someone, or if they share common bonds with you, follow the same footy team, whatever, is just dumb. Team division is not team building. So playing favourites is certainly not the way to get your team gelled and aligned to company or team goals. So don't play favourites. Number 7, assume all is well when no one is providing feedback. Isn't that another classic? Well, no one's saying anything, so I must be doing okay, is once again a common thing I hear from leaders. Never assume that just because your boss isn't providing you feedback that everything is okay. No feedback keeps you where you are. I want you to really take that on board. No feedback keeps you where you are. So when you're not getting feedback, you are rooted in that position where you're at. You are stuck. When you get into what got you in the position will not get you to the next stage. So you need feedback. You need feedback to develop and to be able to work on some of those things that you need to be working on. We all have things to work on. The facts behind feedback is that people getting the most feedback are usually poor performers, which is where we get this whole concept of no one's telling me, so I must be doing okay. But the reality is that the best place to be investing in your feedback is in your good performers. The next lot are our best performing team members, and you should be providing feedback to them on an ongoing basis. Average just doesn't cut it, does it? You don't want to be average. You don't want your team to be average. So if you don't want to be average, chase feedback. Chase constructive feedback, and otherwise expect to stay in the role that you're in for quite a period of time. So now that we've talked about some of the downfalls of first-time leaders, let's look at some of the ways and some of the tips to get successful. One of the first things, it's an attitude thing. Aim for outstanding. Don't aim to fly under the radar. Follow the belief that you're outstanding and match that belief with actions. So aim for outstanding. Tip number 2, listen, listen, listen. Nothing shows people that they are respected and valued by the capacity for someone to listen to them. So the first stage for you in building your team is to listen to them. Listen to what they say. Number 3, communicate, and when you've done communicate some more. Don't just assume, don't just talk, don't create noise, communicate. Expectations, standards, the vision, the goals, the results. Coach your team, ask questions, listen. Be clear and concise, and don't leave anything to be ambiguous. Set your boundaries. Number 4, it's important for you to understand that your team, it's important for you to understand your team. And if you are genuine in building rapport, you need to connect with them in a way, but you've got very clear boundaries. As a manager, you need to set the boundaries. While some company functions will be necessary, a weekly nightclub or a visit to the pub is probably pushing the barrow of being a little bit out of order. So set your boundaries. You want to connect with them, yes, but you don't want to be friendly with them to the extent that it's a pub session every Friday after work. Set your boundaries. You are a leader. You are a role model. And the final little tip for success is to prioritize development. Now, this is not just for yourself, but for your team. Statistics show us that most leaders don't receive any leadership development training for their first 10 years. Take that on board. Statistics show us that most leaders don't receive any leadership training for their first 10 years. The most important aspect of getting your job done is leadership, and the averages indicate that you will not get the development that you need. I still remember picking up my very first John Maxwell leadership book from a bargain bin. I think it cost me $2. And my journey for development really started that day when I owned my own development and didn't wait for any organization that I was part of to feed me the leadership development that I needed and required. When you keep developing yourself, you will see the way forward with your team. Refuse to accept the status quo and make development, your development, part of your plan. And also, while you're there, make it part of your team's plan. So they're the tips for success. So leading as a positional leader is certainly the toughest that there is. Certainly the toughest there is. You may stay in that world thinking that there are no alternatives, but there certainly are. There are plenty of alternatives in which you can grow. Become aware of them, look for them, and always remember. So I'll just go through the downfalls again. Number 1, rely on title. Number 2, needing to be liked. Number 3, don't assume the skill set of your team. Number 4, do the job yourself. Don't do that. Number 5, treating everyone the same. Number 6, playing favourites. And number 7, assume all is well when no one's giving you feedback. Your tips for success: aim for outstanding, listen, communicate, set your boundaries, and prioritize the concept of development. Thanks for tuning in to episode 307 of, actually 308 of the Today's Leader podcast. I hope you took some value out of the session today, and I look forward to once again tuning in with you next week. Bye for now.